quality of his voice is wonderful. And this event is JOUT 2015. Steve asked me about the year before to co-chair, and we worked together, and I realized how brilliant he was as an event organizer. He just made things so easy. He made things happen so easily. So I hope just watch and enjoy.
It's my pleasure to welcome you to JOUT 2015. The theme is Focus on the Learner, and in the 4 days of the conference, people will have so many opportunities to do just that.
Telling me, we need this, and he kept saying chum change, everything was chum change. And I did not know this expression, and I thought he kept saying chunk change, and I was like, it's a very weird thing you're saying, what does that mean? So he finally explained what chum change was, so yeah. And then when we sort of stepped away from the board of directors, because I live very near here, we'd meet every month, every 2 months for lunch around here in Osaka. So yeah, it was a great time. And yeah, still miss him dearly. So that's it for me. Well, chum change.
Pretty good at talking in front of people, oh, good point. My name is Mizuka Tsukamoto, and Steve and I have known Steve more than half my life. Yep, Steve and I both started at Osaka Jogakuin in the same year. First year, he was the instructor there, and I was first year student. Yep, and I continued my study. Oh, we went to California for study abroad for 1 month together. Had some struggles and difficulties in California. And then continued my studies. And then after I finished my master's program in England, I was invited to teach at Osaka Jogakuin part-time. So some years Steve and I shared students. We would talk about classes and talk about students. And then I think it was Steve and Darren Verity, who was also at Osaka Jogakuin, invited me to attend.
I guess I've been thinking if the microphone came around to me, what would I say tonight? What story would I tell? And I think we all have memories of Steve and the special times we had and how special he was and how he supported us in so many ways. And that's very important, it's very special to me, but for me that's not what's most special about the legacy of Steve. And the legacy of Steve for me are many of the people around this table. That in the months up to his passing, he helped us remember how important it is to reach out to the people who are special to us. That we are all busy, but we should never be too busy to make time for our friends and the people that we love. And for me, it's not so much looking back about the memories of Steve, but it's about continuing to make memories with the people who are special in my life. And I know that whenever we are together, Steve will be in the room, and we will remember him, and he'll be there with us. And I think that for me, that's what is so special about my memory and Steve's legacy that we will continue in the future.
Really, he's like the gift that goes on giving, because I worked with him also on the conference, and unfortunately for them, they got stuck with me. So at the conference, I learned a lot from Steve, but the thing he taught me the best is how to respond to emails from people who are pissing you off. He was so good at that. So somebody would be getting on my nerves, and I would send an email to him, and I would say, how do I respond to this person? And my entire operation system is emotional, so he helped me take all of the me out of the emails and look at what was really going on. And shortly before he died, I had a big situation going on with an idiot, and I sent it to him. I said, this is my response to this email. What do you think? What should I do? What should I say? And he wrote back and he said, my work here is done, grasshopper.
I cannot.
Actually was encouraged me to go back and do it, really help you out. So I started doing this course in Kyoto, and Steve was a teacher, a trainer in training, which I've never heard this word before. And Steve was coming in and wanted to be a trainer. And he looked at me, I looked at him and said, wait, I know you. And so, you're the guy, yeah, Kirk was the connection, and speed it up, I know. And anyway, Steve was participating in the course, and it was this great course. And we had one guy in the course, it was a small group, about 6 people. One guy was this older guy, he's from Alaska, and I'm gonna call him Fred. And the rest of the people in the course, we were very encouraged, you know the story. And Fred, as it turns out, didn't really have a teaching background, and as we got talking, Fred came, he met this Japanese girl in Alaska, she said come to Japan, teach English, and he realized he didn't have a degree, so he went to get the SIT TESOL certificate. And he really was not a good teacher. And we were trying to encourage him to, you know, pick it up, and we want you to complete this course, but we didn't want to, he was holding us down as well. And it was a really hard decision, and Steve was very encouraging, and Steve and I became friends during that course, and that's how I really got to know him. We went out for dinner a few times, and Steve was asking me questions as the SIT people went through it back to you in Rogerian method and said, well, what do you think he's feeling right now? And how he was a truck driver in Alaska. It must have been traumatic for him to come and try to teach, right? And I'm listening and I'm saying, yes, true, but but Steve would just listen to me talk, and he was just, as you all know, he was a great listener, right? Wonderful. And he didn't judge people. And all these skills, I'm watching this guy, and I'm thinking, his emotional IQ is off the charts. And to this day, I hold him in this high regard, that emotional IQ, I'm in my faculty meeting and I'm bored out of my wits and please, I want to go home. And I just think, what would Steve do? Because he was so good at that. Okay? So in the end, and I'll try to finish this up. Fred, what happened was we got 2/3 of the way through our course, and Fred had missed a day and then came back, and the trainer decided, sorry,
That's when you know you went too long. Mic is off. Steve doesn't want me to tell the rest of the story.
No, I think we're okay. Mary, by the way, the trainers were Josh and Brian, and I'll get to that story later. But so Josh and Brian, the trainers, turned on to us and said, "What do you want to do about Fred?" And we said, "Whoa!" And the other people were pretty harsh. They said, "We don't think you should go through the course." So basically, we told Fred to leave, and that's what was decided. That he really wasn't putting in the work, and he wasn't. That was unfortunate. Steve missed the morning session, didn't know what was going on. Comes in the afternoon. It was really funny, and and it was after lunch, and Fred was gone. And he said, "Hey, Fred wasn't here yesterday, and Fred's not here today." And he asked me, he said, "So what happened to Fred?" And I was like, "I don't want to break him," because Steve was really trying to encourage and get me to practice empathy and all these skills. And I said, "Well, Steve, we decided that Fred couldn't cut it, and he just couldn't complete the course." He said, "Who decided?" I said, "Well, the participants." And he looked at me, crossed his arms, And he just paused, and with that kind of smirk, he said, well, democracy has proven to be a good political system. Something to that effect. And I'll never forget it. And he just kind of smirked and smiled. And I was like, I like you, man. And that to me was Steve. And the power of Steve was the ability to bring people from all walks of life together. Don't judge people. And people do. And I think about Fred, that Fred went through a lot of things. And I wish he could have completed the course. But I didn't vote him out, I'm just saying.
No, listen, you guys all have a lot of heartwarming stories, and I could just be like a broken record saying, excuse me, what a charming and cheerful guy Steve always was. I've been teaching at Jogakuin, first at the high school since 2006. And then about 2008, I think, I started teaching in the university, and then I had more interactions with Steve. Always top shelf guy, as everyone knows here. I was saying to William earlier, even when Steve was pissed off, and he was Steve was never really pissed off. And if he was, but see, that's the thing. If he was pissed off, he faked it really well. Yeah, well, the mic is coming to you next, because I was going to say, Steve was always really great with me, great sense of humor, everything you have already said, many of you tonight. But I think when Mary started this idea of passing the mic to a representative of each table, I looked at our table, a lot of Steve's friends, but no one's a closer friend than Tepera, so I'll pass it to you.
And I want us to remember that although JOLT was important to Steve, and SIT was important to Steve, and Osaka Gakuin was important to Steve, nothing was more important than Yoshiko to Steve. And on more than one occasion, when Steve couldn't be there for something that was important for Yoshiko, he would tell me, you need to do this with Yoshiko. And I was like, oh yeah, it'd be great, because Yoshiko and I were friends. And so she had tickets to Sarah Brightman. And I said, you've got to go, I really don't like Sarah Brightman. I said, no, you'll love her. He says, no. And I said, okay, I'll go. And he says, oh, and you're going to go to Neil Young with me. And I said, why? And he says, because she hates Neil Young. So this is our relationship. We were, of course, we met at work. Well, actually, we didn't meet at work. I met him before he started working at Osaka Jogakuin in '94 when he came to me and asked, what was it like to teach at Osaka Jogakuin? Because he was considering accepting a position there. And so we had a long conversation about the pluses and minuses of working at a private women's school, a small private women's school. And he decided still to come to the school. And I'm very happy he did, because it allowed me to meet him more closely and become good friends, and then to meet Yoshiko. And we had so much fun together. They'd come over and do things like make sausage, which meant to Steve, eat sausage. Or we'd make pasta, which meant to Steve, eat pasta. And we'd make bread, which meant to Steve, eat bread. So Steve was really good at the eating part of all of these activities. We did a lot of sitting and watching for the making part of these activities. But it was a lot of fun. And Steve really shared just his joy of life and his joy of living with Yoshiko, with people who were willing to listen and care and respond to him with generosity. And that's what I remember about Steve. And yeah, he did get angry, and I'm not going to tell you about those things. Okay, I loved him too much to break that from you. But yeah, I had the office next door to his, and sometimes he would come in and say, you can't believe what so-and-so is doing now. And I'd say, yeah, I can. So, miss you both, Steve, miss you, Yoshiko. Love them both.
You have to wear an overcoat. And the slide show we created for memorial service and work at Osaka Jogakuin last fall. So enjoy that introduction.
With SIT, and it was by fluke that he was my practical teacher. So my campus was in Fukakusa, and to get to the entrance, you had to walk up like 80 steps, all right? And on this particular day, it's the week before student festival. So the kids, I teach secondary, and on this particular day, we had the 7th grade, so 2EG, and he was going to observe my class that day. And as you know, who likes to be observed, right? It's always one of those things, right? So on this particular day, my class had lots of decorations and everything up, and their focus was not there. And I said, Steve, do you want to see magic? And he's like, what kind of magic? And I'm like, just watch this. The kids, yeah, and they can't settle down. So here's some magic. So the magic to junior high classes, to quiet them down, word searches. So on that day, I said, Steve, here's the magic, pass the word, and shing. And all the kids were like, oh, I gotta go. And the top 10 students, would come up. And he was like, wow, like for 10 minutes, quiet. And it was that, he was like, that's truly magic. So if you teach secondary, that's one thing you should know. Another thing about SIT is they're really big with reflection. All right? So after you teach, you have to reflect. All right? So Steve and I went to Starbucks, Sanjo, and downstairs, and it was a cold December morning, and we're there by the window, and in reflection, you have to face and face, right? So I'm this way, and Steve's looking out the window, and all of a sudden, he breaks out in pure laughter. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And because I'm like telling this, oh, I should be doing this, and because of this happened, and he just pure laughter. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And I turned around, and all these Santas were running along the Colorado River. So that's what he was laughing about. So that was a common thread for us. And Steve was a mentor to me, and he taught me the art of listening and the art of reflecting, and to get to why we teach and how to become better teachers. So he is an inspiration for me, and he has planted many seeds inside me that I give to my teachers. So I just want to say thank you, Steve, and thank you for having me here.
Peter and Mary, as I told you at the funeral in my disrespectful and somewhat out of character speech, Steve and I were roommates in graduate school and stuff, and Mary and he were considered by the faculty at SIT to be golden. These were the assistants to the professors, and they were considered top notch. Steve won, and Mary also married with Donald Freeman, and Steve, I think he catered everybody, almost really. And I'm sorry, got lost there for a second. I had to write my thesis, and we're classmates, right? So his competence, and I follow up with Steve Guasha, his competence in teaching and following up with you, and also with SIT, he was so good at what he did, and teaching and reflection and everything that SIT was about. And as a teacher, they let him be my thesis reader. They allowed him to sign off on my thesis, a fellow student. That's how much trust and confidence he brought to the program and to people in this classroom. Was kind of amazing if you think about it. Really, truly amazing. They believed in him and knew that he would deliver. He was in the teaching program just like Mary, did teacher training also. Mary also was at that level. I was so fortunate that he was my friend to be able to do that for me. And of course, I tried to milk it as much as I could, to my advantage, but he didn't let me off the hook. He really didn't let me off the hook. He read like he is a speed reader. I write papers, I get like 10 or 15 pages done, and he'd read them and go, okay, here's the stuff I did, boom, 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 all this red crap. But fortunately, he was so good that it made me better. And I was quite proud of that. And I was worried about doing it too, so of course he helped me out a lot. Immensely, actually. There's another part of Steve that maybe some of you don't know, and I'm not gonna tell you the joke, his favorite joke, but it's about Solomon Rushdie. Does anybody know this joke? Heard it from him? Okay. Okay, good. If you want to hear it, I'll tell you later. It's a little politically incorrect, but it was his favorite joke. So I just want to let you know there's other stuff there too. And I guess the last thing is Echo. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell a little story about Steve and before he passed, I guess it was about a month, he was still able to walk around. He went to the bank. And he did some shopping, but he didn't go far. And I was at his apartment because I was living with him and helping him at the time. And he came back and he was like, he was kind of excited, a little happy. And I was like, wow, geez, what's going on, man? What'd you do out there, right? And he goes, you know what happened? I was at Life. There was a supermarket, right? And I saw one of my students. It was a Vietnamese transfer student, I believe, and there's quite a few. And he actually helped a lot of them. I think he was actually connected with quite a few of those students. And he came in, and she was a senior, and he said, "Hey, man, congratulations, you graduate. You're going to graduate. That's right." And she said, "Well, yeah, thank you, but I can't." He said, "What do you mean? I was your advisor. I mean, your thesis is done. I helped you write it. We got it all done." She said, "Well, I don't have enough money to pay for that last semester, so they're not going to let me graduate." Which is a typical university thing. It's nothing out of sync. He said, "Well, we can't have that." He immediately walked to the bank, withdrew 800,000 yen, immediately went to the school, paid it in cash, and came home. Didn't tell anybody. I'm telling you. First time for you to hear it. You didn't know. But of course, and I don't know why he told me, but God love him. Great guy. I got you. I got you.
Steve was dying. I was in Vietnam. I live in Vietnam now. And it was COVID, and I was trying to get permission to come to Japan. And they just decided maybe they'll let some people in if you get special permission, and you have to jump through 1,000,000 hoops. And so I was jumping through those hoops. I live in the mountains in Vietnam, came down to Saigon, and jumped through the hoops and go to the consulate. You need this, I go and get this, and you need this, and I go and get this. It was a kind of pointless exercise. They're looking for reasons to shut you out.
Sure.
And but I kept getting the paper. Here's a letter from the doctor. Here's a copy of it. Verifies that this person is ill. Here's this thing that shows that we have a life history together. I also have a son in Tokyo, so here's this thing. I can go as the parent of a Japanese national. And boom, 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 boom. And they kept making it difficult. And I kept coming back. And the guy at the consulate finally just looked at me like I'm a crazy person. And this is really about you as much as about Steve. He said, what kind of friend do you have? What kind of friends do you have that you would do this? And I didn't have an answer, and I didn't answer his question. And I couldn't, because I don't think he could understand the answer. But I think that you could understand the answer. But what kinds of friendships we have that we might try to do something like that. And that we would be here today, together, still, to remember him. Thank you so much for...
Sorry, I'm following Steve's spirit, and I'm drinking a lot. as I know he would have too. Okay, if I was going to summarize my experiences with Steve, it would be, all right, let's do it. Was basically the feeling behind everything. We showed up, like a couple of us new teachers, we came and we wanted to try new things, and it was, yeah, let's try. With a lot of, some more experimental than others, and we tried new things, and it was always a lot of fun. He was always really up for it, and really willing to try, and gave everything 100%. And then beyond work, we'd go out after work, and again, it was, yeah, let's do it. There's a place near work where we could throw some dice, and if you win, you get a stronger drink. And it was always, let's go do it. And and that ended up sometimes better than others. And he would follow us out, and we'd go out together in good times and in more stressful times at Osaka Jogakuen, and it was always, yeah, let's try to get through it, let's try to make the best of it, and let's see what we can do. And only really good memories. So, thank you, Steve.
And, today I was sitting next to Robert here, Bob, and we were talking about how to stay healthy. And this was a very important point with Steve, because in 2017, during an annual checkup at my university, Imogen knows this story, the doctor at Kangaku says, Marcus Sensei, I was 45 years old, and he says, do you want to live to be 50 years old? And I said, excuse me? And he says, looking at your health data here, there's a good chance you'll just die before you're 50. So unless you get very serious about your health right now, if you love your family, you should be prepared to say goodbye. And I said, you're joking with me? He says, no, I'm not joking at all. And this was really shocking for me, because I love my family, of course, as we all do, and I love teaching, as we all do here, I'm sure. And I've always put my family and my teaching first, and I realized at that point that I had to put myself first. And I announced it to my colleagues at Kangaku. I said, I've got health problems, and this is what I'm doing. I'm changing my diet, I'm changing my exercise, I'm most importantly changing how much time I put into my teaching. Going for the 85% rule as opposed to the 100% rule. And, I have a long relationship with Osaka Jogakuen. My wife, one of Tamara's first students, is a graduate of Osaka Jogakuen, and that's how I came to Osaka Jogakuen, by marrying a former graduate. Not my student, a graduate. Yeah. And so one day I go to the teacher's room at Osaka Jogakuen, and there's Scott Johnston, and I'm talking to Scott. This is before he retired. And he's up there. He's always up there. And Santa Claus, right? If you've been watching his slides. And I tell Scott about my health troubles. Scott's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I know you're into jogging, but I've got bad joints. I can't jog, Scott. So I walk. My doctor told me to walk an hour each night. And of course, Steve comes in and says, oh, so you guys are talking about health, what you doing? And I said, well, my doctor says I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension, and I've got to change my lifestyle, my diet. And Steve turns to me and goes, William, that's what the pills are for. And I looked at him, I was like, yeah, my doctor told me to avoid that, Steve. I shouldn't get to the point of having to take the pills. If I could change the diet, if I could change my exercise, it's not going to be necessary. He's like, yeah, and he was very good natured about it. He laughed. So, you know, next week I go in there and I see Steve. I say, "How you doing, Steve?" He says, "Good." And, you know, he wasn't talking too much about it. And this is 2017, right? And then the next week I go in there and he goes, I say, "Hi, Steve. How you doing?" He says, "Will, look at this." And this, what is it? He says, "On my iPhone, I got a really good walking app to keep track of my walking and to like stimulate my walking." I said, "Really? Are you using it?" "Yeah." He says, "I've started walking like you." I said, "Wow." I said, that's great." So thereafter, week after week, we started talking about walking, changing our health habits, and getting healthier. And as Mark knows, he says, "Yeah," he says, "Steve lost so much weight in that period." And then Bob says, he says, after seeing what, you know, was happening with Steve, I also started walking too. So I'll say this about Steve. He was incredibly vulnerable to good ideas. And he was infectious in terms of passing those good ideas on to other people. He was possible to influence with positivity, and he had an incredible capacity to pass that positivity on to others. And that was profound for me. This is before he became ill. So I just remember, it's like, wow, I spoke to you about a life experience that's helping me, that's very important. It changed you, and then, in turn, it changed other people, and other people noticed. So I have deep appreciation for what that signifies in terms of personality, how we should always be receptive to what's good in other people, and at the same time, hopefully, not expect, but with hope, with love, hope that it changes the people around us, whether they be students, colleagues, or friends. And so forever for that, that's a very important life lesson for me, to which I would say, thank you so much, Steve.
May, Kirk's daughter, and basically Steve was my uncle, the only uncle I ever had. So you all know him academically, very seriously, sometimes fun. I only know him as a crazy uncle. I first met him when I was probably 5 or so, right after my father finished his master's and then came back. And Steve was staying with me, or staying with at our house. So one day, somehow, he ended up babysitting me. So probably he didn't really know what to do with a 5-year-old girl. So he decided that it was a good idea to teach me finger up the butt in wedgies. So he did. Sorry. He didn't know what to do. So probably he taught me this idea, and my father hated it because I had to do it all the time with him.
To me.
So that's how I know him, and ever since we used to probably meet twice a year for Christmas and summertime. What we did when I was young, we just had fun. Once I was able to drink, he taught me how to drink. And we always had a lot of fun drinking. So that's really all I know about him, being fun and crazy and nothing really serious. So after he passed, and I got involved a lot about taking care of him after he passed. I got to know you all, and I really realized that he was really, really important and a really smart guy, because all I knew was he was just getting drunk with me. So I didn't know he was so serious, and it's very nice for me to know how he was, because I really know one part of him. So this is a really good experience for me. Thank you. And I guess I remember him always as a crazy uncle.
One of the last group of students, I didn't expect to do the speech. I only knew him from 2020, and after I got to know him, he got sick right after. But he was sick, but he finished all of our theses, and then Miss Kato or Miss May told us that he had to do what he had to do, that he had to teach, that pushed him to actually live, and that was really nice to hear, because I was always wondering, asking him for this and that, it might be too much for him if he's really sick. But it was really nice to know, and I'm really glad that even though I knew him only for 2 years,
going to his funeral, which it was a sad occasion, but like coming to here, like it keeps me in touch with all the important people that I know from college. So I'm really grateful for him, grateful, and like this whole thing really told me how great he was. So it's been really great even after he passed. And thank you for having me here today.
Pizza Pan. So it was mentioned earlier that Steve was studying Korean, and I remember him talking about going to Nakazaki-cho and the Korean Cultural Center and studying there. And I live in Nagasaki. And he would talk about this bakery that had Pizza Pan, and that it was really close to our house, and he used to always go and get one after his classes had finished. I was like, okay, it's a bit strange, but you do what you do. And then I finally went there, because I was like, okay, well, I'm probably seeing Steve at work tomorrow, so I'll see if they've got his favorite Pizza Pan. And I went in, and I looked at the one he liked, because he liked the nasu bacon. And I looked at it and I'm like, really? One, it's huge, it's basically a pizza. It's not Pizza Pan, it's a pizza. And it just didn't really look that good at all. I was like, oh, okay then, I'll get one, see what it's like, get one for him, get one for us. And then I had it, and it was amazing. And I should also mention the bakery, doppelsatz, to say the least. You can buy other pieces of bread, and it's meant to be cheese and bacon flavored, but they also have the chocolate chip one, and sometimes the chocolate chips migrate. And when you're expecting bacon, and suddenly there's chocolate, it's not a good thing. But the Pizza Pan was amazing, and he introduced me to that. And especially after he got sick, if I knew he was going to campus, and I knew that I could get there, I would always try and take him one. And sometimes he didn't make it into work, or I didn't see him, but other times I did. And I just remember sort of like sending him an email and saying, like, are you on campus today? And he'd be like, yes. I was like, okay, I've got something for you. And I would come up, knock on his door, and go in and just like, da-da-da, Pizza Pan. And he had that grin. He had that smile on his face that was always there. And just the joy that he has brought to so many people, which is so evident by every single story that has been sent today, that every time now I go to that bakery, I'm like, do they have Steve's Pizza Pan? And if they do, I will get it, because it is really delicious. Even if it looks absolutely dreadful.